Hey, it's Jesse from Sava Press, and today my fiction pick for Editor's Choice is going to be Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. Now, Lolita was a controversial book back when it was published in the 50s, and frankly, I am shocked as to how it got published back then because there's no way in hell that it would be published today. But to me, it is the finest novel written in the English language. Obviously, it's not my favorite. My personal favorite would be The Dead Zone. Was my first fiction pick. But if I had to pick what book I think is the best that I've ever read, it's going to be Lolita. Now, the themes in this book are incredibly dark and incredibly inappropriate would be the word for it, I guess, today. So it's not for everyone. It's definitely for mature readers and for people who really enjoy classic literature, which is a little drier than, say, popular fiction. And for people who don't mind reading dark and disturbing things. So, for anyone who doesn't know about the book, and I think this book is largely forgotten today, except by people who are really into books and really into reading. The plot is about a man named Humbert, and there's no real way to whitewash it, he is a pedophile. He's attracted to girls, primarily the ages between 11 and 12, so right in that prepubescent range. Now, for most people, that is it. Full stop, trash, throw this book in the dumpster, light it on fire, burn it, right? It just anything that has to do with that subject is just taboo, disgusting, and they want nothing to do with it. I totally understand that viewpoint. Obviously, anyone that harms a child in real life should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And without getting political, you can take that as you will. And anyone who has thoughts or feelings of harming a child should be kept the hell away from children. There's just no question about that. I don't want any of my words to be misconstrued. But for me, when I read Lolita, I can separate my thoughts about real world criminals and the world of fiction. So, in doing some research on the book, apparently Nabokov was inspired to write this story about a real life incident where a man had kidnapped a young girl. But this book, it's all fictitious. It didn't really happen. So I can separate that too when I do read it. And the reason why I like it and I think it is such an important book is the use of language. Nabokov was a genius. And to me, this book is just pure poetry from beginning to end. So the plot is about Humbert, and he, I believe he's from France. It's been a while since I've read it. And he comes to America at any rate, and he goes to live in this house where a woman is renting out a room. And she has the young girl that he calls Lolita in this book, and it's all written from Humbert's point of view, so it is first person. And to put a hold on the plot for a second, I think that was a really odd but brilliant choice that Nabokov made to write the book from Humbert's perspective and to make it so elegant and poetic. So Humbert, when he gets a look at the girl, of course, he decides he's going to live in the house, and he butters up the mom and ends up marrying her. And then I can't really give away too much more without spoiling the plot, but eventually the girl kind of falls into his clutches, and he takes her on this cross-country trip where he's trying to keep them moving and keep her infatuated with him so she doesn't develop her own rebellious spirit and try to go off on her own. And the character of Lolita herself obviously is just a child, but she's kind of manipulative herself, and and coquettish toward him, and petulant like a child. And this book is given rise to the term Lolita to describe kind of a younger girl, not an underage girl so much, but just a younger girl who is kind of flirtatious with older guys and manipulative, and whatever. Because from Humbert's point of view, he casts himself as sort of being manipulated by her, which we know is crap, but it's his forbidden desire that's really got a grip of him on him in this book. And there there are some really dark parts of the book, but the parts that are sexual in nature are not tawdry. No, Nabokov uses Humbert to describe them, but in very, like, a lot of analogies and metaphorical type senses. So there's nothing. This isn't like a blatant kind of erotica book. It's not meant to be that at all. And Humbert throughout the book is self-loathing. He knows that he's a horrible human being, and he makes mention of that throughout the book. So obviously, Nabokov was not trying to glorify any criminal or disgusting behavior. And there is a great little essay in the back of this book where Nabokov kind of details his thoughts of why he wrote it and how it came to be. So for me, the story is really a metaphor for how sometimes we can feel forbidden desires, and it can be for anything, whether it's gambling or some type of substance or something that we feel compelled to do, or something to want, and we know deep down that we really shouldn't. And unfortunately, the history of humanity is filled with stories of people whose dark desires have gotten the best of them and destroyed them. And to me, this book isn't. It's not on the surface. It's not about, or on the surface, it is about a man doing some horrible things with a child. But to me, the subtext of it, which is what I find most enriching about the book, is that it's about that. It's about just the dark desires of humanity, and maybe just men in general. So obviously the book is not for everyone, and people who are really sensitive to that subject or topic, I'm not recommending it at all. But for writers out there who like mature content, love literature, and they just care about the words and the way that they're used, you're not going to find any better examples of this. And I'll just, hopefully to bolster my own point, I want to read just the first little section here, because when I first picked this book up, I read that and I was just hooked. So, part 1, Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins, my sin, my soul. Lolita, the tip of the tongue taking a trip of 3 steps down the palate to tap at 3 on the teeth. Lolita. She was low, plain low in the morning, standing 4 feet 10 in one sock. She was Lola in slacks. She was Dolly at school. She was Dolores on the dotted line. But in my arms she was always Lolita. Did she have a precursor? She did, indeed she did. In point of fact, there might have been no Lolita at all had I not loved, one summer, a certain initial girl child, in a princedom by the sea. Oh, when? About as many years before Lolita was born as my age was that summer. You can always count on a murderer for a fancy prose style. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, exhibit number 1 is what the seraphs, the misinformed, simple, noble-winged seraphs, envied. Look at this tangle of thorns. What more can I say? See you next time.